Live from the Export Beer Garden Studios, this is the BYC, where today we'll be analysing New Zealand's first performance at the T20 World Cup. Though to call it a performance would be flattering, a shambles would be a more accurate description. Whatever geniuses thought it would be a good idea to send our troops to a World Cup with zero preparation needs a thorough arse-slapping. It was subpar in every aspect. From the woeful fielding to the stilted, clueless batting, we were completely outplayed and now find ourselves with only an outside chance of advancing to the next stage. And need reminding, the result. Afghanistan 159 for 6. New Zealand. My God.
Are you vomiting?
Am I?
Getting some phlegm off your chest there.
I was getting a bit of vom in the mouth there, fellas. Sorry about that. A paltry, a disgusting 75. But let's leap right into the correspondence, and I'll kick us off, fellas, if you don't mind. This is from Fahad in Chittagong. Hi, guys. Does Conway's disoriented left hand reflect the state of New Zealand's team in this World Cup? You kept calling the Afghanistan match a banana skin, but the outcome was more obvious than that. West Indies are beatable, and yet Black Caps can be out of the equation even if they win the rest of their games.
And I'll follow straight on from Fahad and Chittagong with Dean W.
Can I just say, it was less of a banana skin and more like encountering a suburb of fruit shops. You know, it was much, much bigger than a banana skin. I think Fahad's got something. He's on the money there. As you were, DC.
I'm intrigued as well by the reference to a disoriented left hand, but we can get to that. This is from Dean W. The no warm-up scenario is just beyond belief. We play a truckload of meaningless T20Is, but we play none before an actual tournament. This was our top 3 against the Afghans, who played 3 games in a week before they played us, I might add. Finn Allen last played a competitive match on February 23. Devon Conway last played a competitive match on February 23. And Kane Williamson last played a competitive match on April 7. Phillips hadn't played since February 25. Was it news to Gary Stead that Afghanistan are a bona fide side who would likely prosper in Guianese conditions? Incredible mismanagement, but sadly commonplace under this coach. Oh, plenty to get stuck into.
To sink your teeth into there, fellas. Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think that Dean makes a really good point. Afghanistan are no easy beats. They're a good side, particularly when it comes to T20s. But let's hoe into it in terms of the lack of preparation. It showed, Paul Ford, in every single aspect of our game. That fielding was woeful.
Yeah, it was absolutely diabolical, and I'm sure, as Dylan will be telling us shortly, it's not an anomaly that our fielding was like that. It started to get pretty messy about 12 months ago, something like that. Really has fallen off a cliff. But yeah, look, I totally agree. Like I had a look at at what was said around why we didn't play the warm-ups. And what Gary said was, West Indies is a tough place to start. It's hard to get people to Trinidad and Tobago at the same time. Well, the Australians went through something similar, and they just played with the 9 guys that they had there. They chucked a couple of coaches in, and they just made sure that their batters got a bat. And yeah, I think there's an element. Is it complacency, or is it the fact that we don't have as much control over the players, frankly, as what we kind of need and what we're used to? I'm not sure what it is, but clearly there was a decision made by somebody to rely purely on historical experience in the Caribbean, and it clearly wasn't good enough, particularly against the team, as you say, Jace, and as Dean W. said, was always going to be really bloody difficult. They've ripped teams in the last 50-over World Cup. Sure, they've never beaten New Zealand before, but that's no reason that they were never going to do something like this and be capable of it.
Dylan, can I liken it to this? It's like old Hoyte J picking up a cricket bat after not having played a game for 20 years.
And we've seen this a bit recently.
And we're, and playing for the ACC. Not a bloody clue. Not a clue, but serious mismanagement, you've got to say, really, don't you?
Yeah, Paul raised a very interesting little point there that I wonder if it warrants expansion, and that is the sense that this was player-driven decision. that coming home from the IPL, they wanted more home time as opposed to more preparation time. Is that complacency or is that arrogance? Is that thinking that you're pretty much going to use Afghanistan as your warm-up game? I would hate for that to be the prevailing thought in the team, but, maybe it was. It's inconceivable that you would go to an ODI World Cup on this sort of preparation. It's inconceivable even that you would, you go into a test season. I guess tests are a little bit different. It's a bit harder to get warm-up games for those, but you think about what you used to do on a cricket tour. You'd play if you went to England, for example, you'd play 6 county games. The warm-up game seems to have disappeared, and certainly it's less important than it used to be. But this just exposed, I guess, the fallacy of the idea that you can just plug in and play.
Yeah,
it was interesting too, and I think you touched on this. But Afghanistan in the lead-in over the last couple of months, they've been on tour in Sri Lanka together. They played a full-on series against Ireland. I think they played everything there. Tests, one days, a bunch of T20s, and they played those games in Sharjah. Then they had a warm-up game, which I think got terminated early against Oman. They played Scotland, and then of course they had a very, very handy first game up against Uganda. So we couldn't have hit them at probably we couldn't have come across a better prepared Afghanistan team than the one that we played as well.
Yeah, you would hate to think, Dylan, as you stated, that was the mentality of the New Zealand side, which was we'll use Afghanistan as our warm-up game, and that'll click us into gear. You would hope that wasn't the case, and it reeks of arrogance if it was. And we got our pants pulled down. Conway at wicketkeeper. I don't like it. How do you guys feel about it?
Dreadful. And I can kind of understand the rationale. It certainly helps the balance of your team if you've got a top order player that wicket keeps.
Sure.
And I can understand the rationale if this T20 was being played on IPL wickets or even somewhere like Australia where it's a good, true wickets. The ball was not going to beat the bat a lot of times. Somewhere like the West Indies and in the States, which is a little bit of an unknown, but where the ball tends to have a little bit more balance. There's a bit more balance between bat and ball. I think a good wicketkeeper is critical. And Devon Conway is the very definition of a stopper.
Yes.
He is there to stop balls going to the boundary. He's there for the odd ball that beats the bat to stop it to going to the boundary for 4 byes. He's not there to catch nicks because he really can't. He's not there to get stumpings because he really can't. And that kind of filtered through the team, I felt. Like he made a couple of critical errors in the first couple of overs. Some of them were partially understandable, and it would have required a good keeper to get to an inside edge. One, very unlucky not to be bowled when Santner beat the bat. It clipped the leg stump. But it kind of, you could almost see the rest of the team lose their confidence as a result. There was absolutely no excuse for him dropping that basic return from Matt Henry for
the run out.
What should have been a run-of-the-mill run out.
Yes.
So they've got thinking to do there, and I'm not quite sure what their options are, but we can talk about that later on. Perhaps.
Sure. And God forbid he break his hand again. He breaks his hand again. Put him in the firing line.
That's a good point. Coming back from a broken finger, stick him in wicketkeeper. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I mentioned before about how we've cited the fact that we've got Caribbean Premier League experience. Well, there's a guy that's been to the Caribbean Premier League and played as a wicketkeeper, and his name's Tim Seifert. And if you use the same thinking, why isn't he there? Like, it's sort of this weird thing where it's like, we really want guys that are experienced. What, like it being a wicketkeeper in the West Indies? And we pick the one guy that we've had that's been a wicketkeeper in the West Indies. We don't pick him.
Yeah. Moving on from that, we left 290 T20 wickets on the sideline there. A shit ton of experience. And Rachin Ravindra, who has been playing, not selected as well. What the bloody hell are we thinking, Dylan? This is crazy. What is it with Rachin? Just put the guy in the team, for God's sake.
Yeah, one of the few guys that's actually been playing cricket. And he didn't have a great IPL, but he finished the tournament quite strongly. He's been playing cricket. They didn't pick him. They didn't pick Tim Southey. They didn't pick Ish Sodhi. I think in that 15-man squad, you can make arguments for any of combination to make the 11, but it was actually a friend of mine who, of a cricketing persuasion, who probably feels the same way about Cantabrians as the Daily Mail feels about Meghan Markle, but he kind of pointed out to me that, and I never thought about this at the time, but Matt Henry, who's got a economy rate slightly worse than Tim Southee. He's got a strike rate slightly worse than Tim Southee and an average slightly worse than Tim Southee and a shit ton less wickets than Tim Southee, gets the nod over Tim Southee. I wasn't quite as offended by it because I think if you're going on current form, then
yes,
he's probably bowling better than Tim at the moment, and he was coming off some IPL, so I could kind of understand that. But there is this incredible scenario now where New Zealand left the highest wicket taker in T20 internationals out of their 11 and the fourth highest wicket taker in T20 internationals out of the 11. And Jimmy Neesham too, I think you could make a really strong case for him to get a run. But yeah, I'm not sure if the configuration of the 11 was the biggest problem on the night.
No. Paul Ford, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with a lot of that. But yeah, the Chapman over Ravindra, which I assume was sort of the selection decision there, you do get the sense that, I don't know, there's this kind of, well, Chapman's done it for New Zealand in Pakistan. He got that 80 ball 42 or whatever it was, in the sort of C team series where they overperformed, and it felt like he was picked as a kind of a nod to that. But yeah, I mean, it's just hard to get your head around why a guy who has been red hot at international level, scored runs against Australia, as you say, is getting picked in IPL teams, you can't make that team. That did not make sense to me. Tim Southee, yes, I think it's a bit of a 50-50 with Nat Henry, but if you look at Tim Southee's performances over the last couple of years, specifically in T20s, not that bad, going at around 8 runs and over, averaging sort of around 19.5 strike rate, getting a wicket every 15 or 16 balls, better than his career stats. And it felt like a weird decision to me not to pick him.
And he bowls at the tough moments too, doesn't he? He bowls at the power play and he bowls at the death.
At the death, yeah. Well, one thing we can't make an excuse for was the fielding, and one of you guys mentioned earlier on that maybe the rot started to happen at the end of last season. I mean, is Chapman carrying a virus that he's brought into the side? Because, New Zealand sides historically, Dylan, have always prided ourselves on our fielding. We're a good fielding side. But the fielding in that match was beyond belief. Yeah. I was pulling my luxurious hair out, watching the drop catches, the missed runouts. It was just a shambles. But once again, is that a symptom of a lack of play?
Yeah, possibly, but it wasn't. It was happening last summer, that 3-0 series whitewash at the hands of Australia in the T20s was marked by just really wretched New Zealand fielding and catching in particular. But it wasn't just the catching. I mean, the Finn Allen one on the boundary was bizarre. It didn't even hit his hands before it hit his midriff. You had Daryl Mitchell fluffing one on the boundary. You had at least 2 overthrows that were just completely unnecessary. I think Mark Chapman was involved in both of them. And there was one interesting one that they showed on a wide shot over, must have been by Spidercam, and they throw the ball into Trent Boltsy, and he wasn't expecting it, went past him, and you see the guy on the boundary who normally would be running up inside the ring to cut off the chance of overthrows, suddenly realises that's what he's meant to do, and he takes off so late, and it just looked a shambles. It looked like a team that hadn't played cricket, not just in the last few months, but maybe hadn't played cricket since the first COVID lockdown.
It's interesting, Paul Ford. I had a thought while I was watching that New Zealand fielding performance, and I thought, geez, we need to get Paul Ford in there after your sensational 4 catches, was it, in an ACC match, just plucking the ball out of the blue sky there. Maybe a bit of Paul Ford action with the fielding. But seriously, though, no excuses for that. No excuses.
I do love a bit of one-hand catching. Yeah, well, as you say, it wasn't just sort of like one guy. There was that, I remember that game, wasn't there, where Mark Chapman just had this he was the magnet for the ball and he dropped everything. Well, it wasn't like that. It was like, as you say, a range of players did something dumb during that match against Afghanistan. And yeah, it just looked like rust, that's what it looked like. I saw the West Indies this week said that they came into their first game, they felt like they were about 60%, and then by the time they hit their second game, they were feeling like they were playing at about 90%. And I couldn't help but think, it feels like New Zealand came in at about 6%, particularly from a fielding point of view. that's a really weird one for me because, that's now home and away, a massive series against Australia where the fielding's shithouse, and then we go to a World Cup when the fielding looks like it's still shithouse. Like, it just doesn't make sense, and it's absolutely agonising to watch. But when you've got Simon Doull in commentary saying that, the New Zealanders are fielding with hands like feet, that's devastating, I would imagine, for the Kiwis.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take our first break, and then we'll be back to dig even further, fellas. Welcome back to this BYC podcast. Phineas Slog. Let's have a little look at the batting here. What an awful shot, Dylan.
Good nut.
Oh, it was a good nut.
We'll give Fazal Haq Faruqi a little bit of credit here.
Yeah, but
they turned around a corner. But you're right. You're correct.
It was an awful shot.
It was. Yeah.
We seem to have this perpetual question with Finn Allen, which is yay or nay. I feel like we're not convinced.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. His failure rate's too high. My worry with him is that there's obviously some talent there.
Yes.
He's got a game that's never going to be consistent. So I think we've got to get this idea out of our head that he's going to be a Kane Williamson
consistent performer,
run
yes,
accumulator. He's there for his explosive talent and to when he gets in to win games. But at the same time, you can't have a failure rate that's that high. I did some stats the other day, and I wish I had them in front of me now, but I think he faces 6 balls or fewer more than 1 in every 4 times he bats. I think he's only got beyond 20 runs in a third of his 44 T20I internationals.
Mm-hmm.
That's not sustainable, I don't think.
No, well,
unless he is genuinely winning you games in those other ones, but he's really not. I don't, and the worry for me is I don't see improvement.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Paul Ford, is that you can be a dasher, you can be an explosive player, but you still, it should still be within your means. When you get a good nut, to keep it out, to stay out there, to actually learn those skills too. I don't have to have an almighty tonk at every ball. I can actually give myself a bit more time. And to Dylan's point, he doesn't seem to have learned that lesson. It's like, the outhouse or bust or whatever. He just goes for everything.
I agree. I don't know whether it is... And I'm guilty of making an excuse here, but I'm genuinely curious, I guess, as to whether he has been told, you must go absolutely hell for leather from ball 1. Don't take a sighter. We've got Kane and Devon there who will sort of hang around and run that sort of sheet anchor and go through the gears. Your job is to absolutely blaze away from ball 1. But what I don't then understand is that when he gets out first ball, exactly like he did, taking no sighters. We're not chasing like 50,000 runs. He didn't need to be doing that. It does look to me like that's just writing instructions. And then you go, okay, so that's fine that he's going to do that. So then what we do is we then bring out our normal batting order. So what we're saying is we're giving Finn Allen the license, but it's not really part of our overall tactics to go hammer and tongs from ball 1, no matter who's batting. And that's the bit that it just seems a bit inconsistent to me. Dylan, I think his average score is something like 25 of 16, Finn Allen, and his median score's 14. He's got 9 30s, 4 50s and 200s in 44 bats. So, yeah, as you say, the recipe doesn't work a hell of a lot. When it does, it's great. But, it feels like it's very low percentage stuff.
Yeah. Do we have a lack of flexibility in our batting order?
I think Paul just absolutely hit the nail on the head there where he says Finn Allen fails a lot. When he does fail, what that gives you is Conway and Williamson in the middle together. And that is not frightening any bowling attack around the world in the power play.
No.
Both fine players, but they should not be batting together in a power play, I don't think. And I really think New Zealand are just locked into this very prosaic way of playing T20 cricket, and it's been figured out. I'd actually include Daryl Mitchell in that as well, who's a really good ball striker and scores at a good strike rate, but he is not a from ball 1
No.
guy. He actually needs quite a few sighters. So if you're going to have Finn Allen with that license and you're going to bank into your strategy that he is going to fail 60% of the time that he plays, surely the next guy in has to be a guy that carries on that. Has to be a Phillips, although even Phillips, I think, is a little bit of a nudger early. But you need someone to carry that momentum on. You can't have a strategy that lasts for 6 balls and then you go, right, we have to bin that strategy and go back to try and bore the...
Yeah, knock it around. And yeah.
Jace, that's exactly right. It is, if you're going to say to Allen, if you're going to say, as a team, we're going to go balls out for the power play, the first 6 overs. If Finn Allen gets out, the next guy in is the next best striker after Finn Allen. So, yeah, absolutely. I think what you said is right. It is. It's Jimmy Neesham. He'd be your next man in, or at the very least, whoever you put up there is just going hell for leather because that's your tactic. It's the Tim David maneuver. I mean, we saw India overnight. They brought in Akshar Patel when they lost an early wicket, and that's because they're saying we don't really give a shit about the wickets. We're trying to get as many runs as we can in the first 6 overs, and that's fine. But if you're going to do it, commit.
Yeah, and you've actually, that's a really good point, Dylan. You've actually made, I never thought of that, that when he fails, then we just fall back to that nudges and lack of explosive sort of batting. Afghanistan were excellent, and are they underrated still?
I think they're a dynamic T20 team.
Yeah, they're a good side.
I was looking at that team and thinking, we're a lot of those players would get in a New Zealand first 11.
Bloody oats, they would. Better than New Zealand, maybe, Paul Ford.
Well, I think what's happened is that their bowling's always been pretty good, particularly their spin bowling. Then they've got their pace bowling sorted, and they've never been terrible at pace bowling, but Faruqi's obviously on a bit of a tear. What they have nailed and started to nail consistently, particularly against big teams, is the batting. Their batting has come up massively, and Gurbaz, that 80 off 56, Zadran got 44 off 41. They're the first 2 guys to ever put together consecutive century partnerships in a T20 World Cup. They are frightening, and if you're going to drop catches and miss runouts against them, they are going to punish you. I think they put a hell of a lot of stock in those top 2 batters, but if you let them get away, they're going to wreak absolute havoc. And the threat of Rashid Khan is just horrible, I think, for batting teams when you're facing, that they've got Rashid Khan to come on. I mean, Rashid Khan's record, he has got 144 wickets at an average of 14, a strike rate of 14, and an economy rate of 6 runs per over. The Afghani Afridi is a freak.
Can I just point out, too, that they were missing their best new ball spinner in Mujib. He would have been very tricky on that surface. Not that they needed any more tricks when New Zealand collapsed for 75, but the one thing he might have added to is he's a comical fielder, so that might have balanced the ledger. So.
That's sobering. The other thing I was just going to mention just very quickly was I'm sure I read it or heard an interview with Mitchell Santner where he said that the pitch changed significantly in the second innings, and I was like, what? I assume that we chose to bat second so that when the dew came in, we didn't have to face that when we're bowling. And obviously it's good for batters, shitty for fielders, terrible for bowlers. So if Afghanistan did all of that with a dewy ball, pretty sensational effort.
Yeah. Just on the pitches, there's some shockers.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the litany of low scores. We're not looking at 200s and 230s or 240s. There's a litany of... in some of the games I've been watching, I'm shocked at the quality of the actual wicket. Ducking and skidding along the ground. What the hell's going on there?
Well, the drop-ins for New York have been dreadful.
Yeah. Yes.
They've had all sorts of issues with that. I noticed that the curator of the drop-ins, who's the Adelaide Oval curator, Damien Hoff, I think his name is, said that he identified grass shoots were growing up in the cracks of the wicket in New York. So they've had to lay it. Well, I don't want to get into
the minuto
turf management here, but they've clearly got issues there that aren't going to be solved in time for the following games. I think New York gets played on virtually every day for the next couple of days, and then that's gone. Then they move to Florida for the rest of the US kind of segment, and the West Indies wickets are playing actually like you'd expect them to play. If you watch the CPL, this is what they do. They're slow. It's not IPL style, Big Bash style T20 cricket, but
the pitches aren't shiny, is what you're saying.
no, but
Yes.
if you look at it, you think maybe New Zealand could prosper on these type of wickets.
Yeah, with our dibbly dobblies. It's interesting, fellas. I was looking at the table, thinking to myself, my God, we're in a world of pain here. The West Indies coming up. Do we need to look at some changes?
Yeah, I think we do.
Neesham.
I could make a case for 3 of the people that missed out getting a run. I might look to play Southey instead of Henry, although that's still a 50-50 call for me. I wouldn't be offended either way. But Neesham I would definitely bring in, and Rachin Ravindra. Like you guys, I can't believe he wasn't in that 11.
Yeah, I mean...
So do you bring
Chapman go.
Are you
Chapman.
bringing Verinder in for Chapman? Yep. And then who are you bringing?
No, for Neesham I do that.
Yeah, I'd probably go Neesham for Chapman. I'd go Ravindra for Conway, which would then require either Phineas Slog or a real turn back the clock and Glenn Phillips as keeper. But let's face it, neither of them can do any worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I mean they could level up they could just level up the batting, basically bring Ravindra in for Chapman and bring Neesham in as a bowler and get rid of Henry and just deepen that batting line up.
Neesham though is, I mean, he can go for plenty, so that would
Yes, he can.
It would be bold, but yeah, you could do that.
Because the worrying thing too is that in the West Indies, as you say, we were saying earlier, coming into a bit of form, looking strong, and on their home turf, going to be difficult to beat Paul Ford.
Yeah, I mean they have got some aggressive batters. Their skipper Rovman Powell, he bashes the living bejesus out of it. I saw a stat which said his strike rate in the death overs is 197 against pace. So yeah. Let's not do that to him. Let's see. And of course, very tricky spinners. Akeal Hossain, in particular, is a real gun and a real power play specialist. One thing that we do need to keep an eye on is the weather too, which it looks like on Monday, which it will be played. The game's played on Monday in where is it, Dylan? It's in the Brian Lara, isn't it?
Tarouba, south of Port of Spain, kind of still on the left-hand coast of Trinidad, but much further south than Queen's Park Oval.
So, yeah, thunderstorms are forecast and a 79% chance of rain. So, even if New Zealand get out there and look magnificent against the West Indies, it could get washed away, which would be pretty tragic.
Yes. Just looking at the table, Dylan.
Yes.
It's not looking good. As was stated in our correspondence, we could win the rest of our games and still not get through.
No, what it appears we need now, especially with West Indies bowling Uganda out for 39 or something.
39, yeah.
Is we pretty much need to beat the West Indies and then hope Afghanistan also turn over the West Indies.
Yeah.
That would get us through. But just while we're on the subject of Trinidad, to follow on from last week where my Guianese all-time 11, Trinidad is probably the second richest of the West Indies conglomeration in terms of the talent factory. My 11 for Trinidad all-time 11 is Jeffrey Stollmeyer and Darren Bravo opening, Brian Lara 3, Larry Gomes 4, Charlie Davis number 5, Larry Constantine, what a great man he was, civil rights activist as well. He's the captain and all-rounder. Bernard Julian's another all-rounder. Derek Murray is the wicket-keeper. Ian Bishop, Shannon Gabriel and Sonny Ramadan are the bowlers. And jeepers, there's some good players that miss out on that team like Dwayne Bravo and Dinesh Ramdan, Phil Simmons, Sunil Nareen. But last week I asked you the question, who was the Guyanese cricketer who died in Hamilton a couple of years ago? Patrick Pedersen was the first one to write in with the correct answer. Hey fellas, great to hear you back. I think this week's mystery man is Bruce Hamilton Paradu. Quite a coincidence that he ended up dying in the city of his middle name. Cheers, Patrick, and thank you. That is the correct answer. This week's question is, which Trinidadian cricketer died in Christchurch 11 years ago?
Why do West Indian cricketers keep dying in New Zealand?
Yeah, I know. So if you know the answer to that, back of an envelope, Paul will give you the details later on in the Podcast.
I tell you what, fellas, looking at the table there, she's going to be a ding-dong battle against Guyana.
Against Guyana?
PNG.
Oh, PNG.
Or is it Uganda? Who are you
No,
talking
sorry.
about, Jason?
What was I saying? Uganda.
But you are
sorry.
correct. I think
That's going to be a classic match. New Zealand bowled out for a paltry 63 and the Ugandans coming storming home.
We may see some flexibility in the batting order if we're chasing net run rate, that's for sure.
Yes. Was it too late to change the uniform?
Oh, please, God, let them change that uniform. But it is too late. I think they're locked into this strangely. I mean, it's quite a radical colour, teal, but they've somehow managed to make it really dull. Yeah, I don't know what was wrong with beige or black.
You don't know what's wrong with beige
or black.
You're not going to get any argument from me on that. Hey, that teal, Jace, just so you know, we came third in the 1999 World Cup wearing it. So that's not a great inspiration. The uniform in which we came third. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's dashing.
Do you?
Yeah. Teal as opposed to beige. Beige.
Beige has something about it. Beige evokes those memories that are almost visceral from the early 80s. So
True.
It's beige is intimidating.
True.
Of the camera panning to the New Zealand team waiting to bat, all smoking cigarettes.
Maybe they just feel really stupid wearing teal and that's why they played so badly. They were just really self-conscious.
Well, possible.
Let's take another ad break and we'll be back to discuss the rest of the tournament. Yes, indeed. Welcome back to the BYC. India beat Pakistan by 6 runs. Very low scoring affair, that little doozy. But India sneaking through, Dylan Cleaver.
Yeah, massive, obviously, geopolitical ramifications for that. But that was played in New York to engage the South Asian diaspora. Job done, I guess. It was just a shame that conditions probably didn't match the occasion.
Yes.
34,000 seat stadium built in 5 months. Pretty extraordinary. It's not really New York, is it? It's Long Island. It's bloody miles out of New York. You can see New York if you stand on the roof of the stadium and get binoculars and look into the distance. You know, it's pretty ridiculous. I enjoyed the game. I've got to say that those games are just sensational. India, Pakistan. I think Pakistan bottled this one though. I mean, they needed a runner ball and they got Jasprit Bumrah at the end, but when they needed a runner ball, they still kept trying to belt the living bejesus out of it over the stands, and it was quite frustrating to watch. I did just want to say, if you haven't seen the halftime entertainment in that match, which featured some Emirates air hostesses doing not even a cheerleading dance, just a sort of walk down the aisle kind of synchronized walk, and then Ricky Ponting doing a super enthusiastic introduction live at the ground, one of the most colossal waste of money of all time. Ricky Ponting out on the field introducing the Emirates air hostesses while we're being subjected to Steve Smith in the commentary.
Oh.
Not good.
Yeah. God help us all. Aussie knocking over the English. No real surprises?
No, but two things. England, this England white ball unit has probably been viewed in a similar way as we're viewing the Black Caps at the moment by their press back home. They are not happy with Matthew Mott at all. It was a really limp performance from England on both sides of the ball. Australia, though, jeepers, just look annoyingly efficient when they bring Hazelwood, Cummins, Zampa. These guys just know how to bowl in any conditions you put them on. They're already looking like a tough out, to use an American term.
Let's just call it, shall we? Let's just be done. Just give it to them now, Paul Ford. Why don't we?
If I knew that they were going to win, I would definitely stop watching it. It's quite a good point, Jace. So, yeah, it might save me a bit of time. I mean, the other thing that they've got, Dylan, and I know you're probably just about to get to this, is, first of all, they've got the first score past 200 in the tournament, Jace, just for you.
Yes.
But you did have to watch David Warner and Travis Head go for it. They combined for 73 off 34 balls. Australia was 74 for 2 at the end of those first 6 overs, just to show that comparing contrast with the way New Zealand's going about things at the moment. Very different contrasting styles.
Bangladesh beat Sri Lanka by 2 wickets.
Yeah, this was quite big for the tournament. It effectively put Sri Lanka out. I think they would need a miracle to get in from here. Bangladesh almost made a mess of it. They weren't chasing a whole lot.
125, I think they were chasing. Yeah.
The guy that just seems to never not be part of the Bangladesh team. That's double negative there, very terrible grammar and syntax. But Mahmudullah, he was the key for them, got them home. But that group, what group are they in? They're in Group D. That looks like a lock for South Africa and Bangladesh now after South Africa beat their bogey team, Netherlands. I love the way that Netherlands are called South Africa's bogey team after they beat them once.
And I very much enjoyed this match. USA stunned the Pakistanis, Paul Ford.
Oh, yeah, it was quite extraordinary. Yeah, I think just unfathomably bad bowling by Pakistan. I mean, they just looked like they just lost their rag at the end of that game. It was an absolute shambles. And the USA, again, just sensational. It was a terrific game of cricket, really awesome for the tournament. And, what can the USA do against India? Who knows?
Can I just raise something here? And I don't want to cast aspersions on anyone here, but what a bizarre scene at the end of the regulation 20 overs where USA need 4 to tie the game off the last ball, and you bring your mid-on and mid-off up inside the circle and then bowl full outside off stump. It was curious. Can I say that? It was a curious tactic. And, of course, the USA batter did what he needed to do, which was plop it over the head of mid-off for 4, and we go into a super over, which USA didn't make a race of. And it was quite a nice story, actually. The guy that bowled the super over for USA is a computer programmer from, I think it's Mumbai, certainly India, gone to America to make his riches. He actually played age group cricket. I think he might even come to New Zealand for an under-19 World Cup with India. Others went ahead of him. So he immigrated to find a new life in the USA and then gets his moment in the spotlight, which is just lovely. And I've forgotten his name, sorry.
Beautiful.
Saurabh Netravolkar is his name. Sensational. Yeah, he's a software engineer. I think he works for Oracle, I think. Full-time, day job. Amazing.
USA can qualify from that pool, we should say.
So I was about to go to the table here.
Yeah.
Group A, India and USA atop the table on 4 points apiece. Canada 2, Pakistan 0, Ireland 0. Group B, Scotland, Australia atop the table with Scotland on 5, Australia on 4. But Scotland played 3 matches. Namibia 2, England 1, Oman 0. Geez, I haven't spoken for a week. You can tell, can't you? Afghanistan, top of Group C, 2 from 2, as are the West Indies, Uganda, 2 points. Papua New Guinea ahead of New Zealand, and New Zealand floundering at the bottom. And Group D, South Africa and Bangladesh. South Africa are in the lead with 2 wins from 2 matches on 4 points. Bangladesh 1 from 1, then the Netherlands, Nepal, and Sri Lanka following up the rear, fellas.
It's really great.
I reckon the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands could sneak through on there. I'm backing them in the next couple of games. I think they could do some damage.
Yeah, they could beat Bangladesh, couldn't they? But I was just going to say it's very amusing, Group C, if you look at the net run rate column, where you have the team at the top on positive 5.225, which is just enormous. I don't know if I've seen that before. And New Zealand sitting there on minus 4.2.
Yeah, shambles. Let's head to your correspondence. USA vibes. You want to read this one, Paul Ford, from Willow in the USA?
Sure. As an American living in Denver, Colorado, there's almost zero evidence that the US is playing co-host in the T20 Cricket World Cup. I saw one highlight on ESPN's top 10 plays of the day. There was a brief mention in the New York Times about the new venue in New York hosting India versus Pakistan, but outside that, zero coverage. The only way I've found to legally watch the matches is a paid subscription to Willow TV, so it is almost impossible for an average person to accidentally stumble upon it. I watched my first test match while studying in England and became a Black Caps supporter when I returned home to the US. Discovered that ESPN streamed all New Zealand domestic Black Caps and White Firms home matches. Wow. I travelled down to New Zealand last February to see my first matches live at the Basin and at Hagley, and hope to return either this coming summer or the summer after to see some more. I've got no ties to full ICC member countries, and I don't know anyone else in the country who watches the sport, so it is something of a lonely existence. I'm very happy to give more US updates as you desire. Lovely to hear from you will. I mentioned last week, Jace, very curious to hear how normal people in America are encountering the Cricket World Cup, even with that breakthrough win from the United States and that massive game overnight. It does seem like it's extremely subcontinental focused, diaspora focused coverage of the Cricket World Cup. Hasn't really hit the mainstream.
I think Willow TV goes great guns, actually. I think that's been a real success story. But, that's a great piece of correspondence and lovely to hear from Willow. And if you are in the country next summer and hanging around the basin, which is where I make my annual pilgrimage to watch a test match there, you'll probably find Paul Ford and I sitting there. So make yourself known.
And those two games that he went to, that would have been England at the Basin Reserve and Sri Lanka at Hagley, two of the greatest games of cricket you could ever watch live in your entire life. So he set a high bar.
Yes, indeed. New York issues.
Oh, yeah, that's just the pitch.
Right. Yeah,
we kind of covered that off. And we would have been remiss if Paul hadn't mentioned it to say that it's a pretty astonishing effort to get a 30,000-seat stadium built from scratch. So kudos to the ICC and the local authorities and whoever managed to get that up and running. But the wicket is an incredibly important part of the cricket viewing.
Somewhat. The other slightly minor issue that we may have just glossed over is the ISIS threat that surrounded the game today, but it does seem that no lone wolf has taken up their request that someone does some sort of outrageous dastardly deed at the game. So, good luck to anyone trying to get through the security. I think there are literally thousands of police and military there with guns, no drones, of course, or anything like that. So, the Super Bowl on steroids seemed to have done pretty well overnight.
Good stuff. What's going on with the bounce, Dylan Cleaver? You're a busy man? I
am a busy man. The bounce is clearly T20 focused at the moment, but there's a bit going on in other sports and rugby. Super Rugby is approaching its...
Yeah, I've been enjoying that. Yeah, it's been good.
So, hop along to that. Google Dylan Cleaver the Bounce or go to dylancleaver.substack.com. Would love to have you along.
Great stuff, mate. Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast. We'll be back. Well, probably not the same time, same place, a little bit further on next week.
Oh,
maybe Monday.
When are we back? We should check that. Actually,
I think we're back on Friday, actually, for a cheeky little Cricket World Cup pod, whoever can make it. So keep an ear out on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Game against the West Indies.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for taking the time to listen. As we say, we'll keep you updated as the tournament goes on and hopefully some better news to report, fellas, than the shambles that we had to talk about today.